Now, another new functionality, or rather, I would say enhancement that has been made to Photoshop CC 2020 is to the transform tool, transform behavior. Now, those of you who have been using the transform functionality, and I cannot conceive of anyone who doesn't use it in Photoshop. Since the Stone Age version, how would you transform a raster or a vector graphic? You would hold down the shift key on your keyboard and then start dragging from one of the corners of the object, alright, be it raster, vector, or a smart object. Now, what would that do? That would basically scale or transform the object proportionately, alright, while maintaining the aspect ratio of the object. Now, for some reasons, and I don't know what were the reasons, Adobe in their 2019 release of Photoshop made some changes to this functionality which were not very well received within the creative community. Now, these changes were inconsistent, and basically, while you could still hold down the shift key to scale the vector objects proportionately, but when it came to the raster object, alright, the continuous stone images, you could scale them up proportionately without having to hold down the shift key, alright. In fact, if you did press the shift button and scaled the raster graphics, it would scale them disproportionately. In a nutshell, it would distort them. So this was a very inconsistent behavior, alright, and moreover it didn't work on the smart objects either. So this behavior has not only been fixed in Photoshop CC 2020, in fact they have made some really cool enhancements to the functionality. Let me show you. So basically, I'll just switch back to Photoshop, and over here you can see, just have a look at the layers panel. I have three layers. One is basically the image, the second is the composite of this ship and below the harbor bridge, and then we have a text layer. Now if I press, if you are working in the earlier versions of Adobe Photoshop, if you hold down the Control T and wanted to scale the vector, or for that matter even raster graphics proportionately, you could just hold down the shift key and start dragging from one of the corner handles, and you can see it's scaling the graphic proportionately while maintaining the aspect ratio. Alright, I can hit the tick mark on the options bar to commit the changes. Now I'll again press Ctrl T on my keyboard, and this time around you can look at my hand. I'm not pressing the shift key, and if I start scaling it from one of the corner handles, see what it does? It distorts the layer, the raster layer, the object. Alright, it's not maintaining the proportions, that is the width and the height. So again, if I press the shift key, it works perfectly fine, like a charm. So now what Adobe has done is, if you look at the options bar, and this guy here, chain button, the link button, or the maintain aspect ratio button, whatever you want to call it, alright, if you click it, it works as a toggle. Alright, so now see the magic. I have my hand over here, I'm not pressing the shift key, and now when I'm scaling, it's scaling proportionately. Alright, so I don't need to press the shift key, and by the way, this is the default behavior. Alright, so you can scale up raster, vector, or smart objects in Photoshop CC 2020 without having to press the shift key, and it would maintain the aspect ratio, it would maintain the proportions. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and commit the changes by clicking this tick button on the options bar. Now this is basically a toggle. Alright, so you can see I have this link button turned on, and it's scaling it proportionately. My hand is up. Now if I switch it off, it's distorting it. It's not scaling it proportionately anymore. Alright, and if I hold down the shift key, let's say I want a old functionality, I can just hold down the shift key and see, now it's working perfectly fine, right? Now for some reason, let's say, and it would make a lot of sense for those of you who are very used to the shift key, what you can do is just visit the preferences, and you can always roll back to the earlier setting. Alright, so for that I'm going to hold down the Control K on my keyboard, that's Command K on Mac, and In the general preferences, in the options segment, you can see we have this option, use legacy free transform. I'm going to make sure it's check enabled and I'm going to click OK to commit the changes. Alright, so now I can always hold down the shift key and I can scale up the objects proportionally. Now one thing you need to keep in mind in Photoshop CC 2020, the transform settings. Alright, this guy here, the maintain aspect ratio button, this is a sticky setting. Alright, so it's a global setting. If I were to enable it, alright, and then close this window, the next image that I open, it will remember this setting and apply it on the subsequent transformations. So you have to keep that one in mind. Alright, so good work Adobe there. This is an amazing functionality, makes the life much more easy. Alright, now let's move on to the next feature. Hello friends, if you really like this segment, then please don't forget to share, comment, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, you can click the bell icon right below this video to be notified about our new tutorials, best practices, tips and tricks as and when we share them. And yes, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest on the links provided below this video. Thank you.